Trying to get by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner. Gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal. Perry in the face. 1-1. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Here we are, Ed. Mighty Post Game Show, and we've got back lots to talk about. Welcome everybody live on Twitch who is here to talk about this game tonight. All I gotta say, man, is burn it down. Burn the whole thing down. Fire Dallas Aikens. I think we definitely need to trade Andre Kasha for
Justin
probably
Falk.
Dan Hamhuis. No, Dan Hamhuis seems more like it. He played well tonight for
Why
the
do we
Preds.
need Dan
Clearly.
Hamhuis? We've
So,
got Luca
I don't
Sbisa.
know. And we just got Sbisa. Yeah, that's true too. Hey man, don't give away what we're going to talk about later. We're going to talk about the downfall of this team. Yeah, that's pretty much Ducks Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it is tonight.
Yeah.
It's not what you're going to hear tonight. The Ducks did fall in big fashion to the Nashville Predators, 6-1 across the scoreboard in Nashville too. But it didn't feel like that for a lot of the game. So if you're listening to this and you're expecting just a rant on how much we don't like this team, basically
That was last
season.
year. We exhausted all of that in 82 podcasts last year.
82. Hey man, they fired Randy Carlyle into the sun with plenty of time for Bob Murray to have some good games. How dare you?
All right, fair enough. And we didn't do 82 podcasts last year either. So
We came close. We were in the 70s. That's a lot. So welcome everybody. Lots of things to unpack tonight, but as we just said, the Ducks lost to the Predators 6-1. Ed, how did you feel going into this game before you saw the starting lineup for the Ducks?
we talked about it on the last show how this was what we thought would be maybe one of the easier games. I think actually you said it would be one of the tougher games. You said it would be one of the tougher games of this road trip. I thought it might be one of the easier ones. I know going into Nashville is never easy, and the Preds were 3-1-1 at home so far, 3-0-1 I think at home so far. But yeah, it looked all right. Then you see the lineup and you see that Max Jones and Maxime Comtois were scratched. I think we figured one of them would be, but not both of them. We were both looking forward to Comtois playing with Steele and Troy Terry in this game, and that didn't end up happening. And Philip Forsberg was out for Nashville too, which is, I guess the Preds in general, most of them are notorious duck killers, but Philip Forsberg always seems to have a chip on his shoulder when he plays the Ducks. So
yeah.
Him being out seemed like it'd be a good omen for the Ducks, but man, Victor Arvidsson, Colton Sissons, pretty much everybody was on for the Preds tonight.
As well was the, opportunistic plays by the Nashville Predators. I felt like the Ducks didn't give them the game, but it just felt like the Preds made good on their grade A scoring chances when they mattered. And that's something you want from your team. That's what you want to move for. And I guess what that comes down to there is the Ducks didn't get the goaltending that they're used to getting. Am I wrong there? Sure. Maybe Gibson wanted back a couple of those goals, but I think the Preds, really made good of their chances.
Yeah. They you look at the scoring chances at the end; they were pretty even throughout the entire game. High danger chances were even. Shot attempts, the Ducks actually won that battle in shot attempts, which is, I don't know when the last time we probably beat the Preds in shot attempts the way the Predators have played over the last couple seasons. So it was more even when you look at the numbers after the game. And it was some bad mistakes from the Ducks. They took I think it was 6 or 7 penalties in this game. Only one power play goal for the Preds. But it's really hard to get any momentum when you're sitting in the penalty box and taking stupid penalties for most of the game. So you got to give credit to the Preds for taking out their opportunities when they get them. Colton Sisson comes out of the box and he snipes one top shelf. And Ekholm makes us pay shorthanded on a turnover from Getzlaf and Lindholm not communicating. Like these are goals where they ended up taking their chances, taking their opportunities. The goalie's left tongue out to dry a little bit here, but the Preds really, they didn't get as many chances as you'd expect in this game, and they pretty much took their chances when they came.
What'd you think of Nick Deslauriers being in the lineup? No Maxime Comtois, no Max Jones, no Max allowed tonight on the ice at all. In fact, it's Nick Ritchie who gets top line minutes with Ryan Getzlaf and Andre Kasha.
Oh, I think we thought Nick Ritchie was going to get top line. because at the end of last game, it was Nick Ritchie who got bumped up with Getzlaf and Kasha, and Maxim Comtois got bumped down with Steele and Terry. So I'm not as surprised that Ritchie is up with Getzlaf and Cash. I was just surprised that Maxime Comtois was scratched. I thought Delorier would go out, Shore would come in, and then either Shore or Ritchie would play on the top line. The other one would play on the fourth line, and then Comtois would be playing with Steele and Terry the way they were playing at the end of the game in the Calgary game. And for some reason, Maxime Comtois ends up getting scratched as well as Max Jones. It's weird to see them both scratched. I think one of them's going to go down. So I would like to see at least one of them get playing time so you can kind of make that decision and decide who you want to stay up. So interesting choice, because I don't know why, maybe because Nick Delorier was scratched for more games than those two. Like Taliesin said last game, he's just trying to get guys in the lineup and get some reps. But, man, I don't see at this point, not that Nick Delorier has played awful, but how do you not put Maxime Comtois in the lineup just to explore that line the way they played at the end of last game?
How does it help? How does putting Nick Delorier in your lineup help your team at all? I mean, I know that when this signing happened over the summer, we were kind of like, it's not really that big of a deal. He's going to get a limited role, limited minutes. But with that logjam on wing, it's kind of affected the Ducks in the early going, would you not say? And then also, what you and I haven't really talked about on these postgame shows, and neither has Jason and I, is the lack of scratching of Derek Grant. Like, why is this not changing up in the lower, on the lower lines, on the lower minute players? I mean, I really feel like they should be giving the kids more of an opportunity here rather than a Nick Delorier or even Derek Grant. I mean, I think that Devin Shore is a better player than Derek Grant, and then clearly there's better wingers than Nick Delorier.
I think the reasoning for Derek Grant is, yes, Devin Shore can play center, but Derek Grant's been among the Ducks' best faceoff men this season, and I think there's still some value in that. There's still some value in that, and obviously the coaches still see some value in that, and why they don't want to take Grant out of the lineup. And he hasn't been bad, but you can put Devin Shore in there, but he's not the best center. That's why he's been utilized on the left wing for the Ducks so far. And you look at all the scratches recently: Jones, Comtois, Ritchie, Delorier, Devin Shore. They're all left wingers for the Ducks, and that's because there's that massive logjam on left wing, so you're going to have to scratch some of those guys. I don't think any of the right wings have been scratched because there are 4 solidified right wings for this team, and none of the centers have been scratched because once Sam Steele came back, it's Getzlaf, Henrique, Steele, and Derek Grant. That's all they have. So right now, if you look forward until somebody gets sent down, and even after that, the guys who are going to get scratched, barring injury or guys bad game, makes a mistake, whatever, suspension, then it's going to be one of those 5 guys who get scratched on the left side, in Shore and Ritchie, Comtois, Delorier, or Jones. And once one of Comtois or Jones gets sent down, it makes it a little bit easier, but it's still going to be a rotation between those 4 guys that are left up.
I mean, the chat's trying to chew me up and spit me out here about Derek Grant, saying he's better right now. I'm not buying it.
He's not been bad, man. He's not been that bad.
Okay.
He's a fourth liner. What do you expect from him, though?
What I expect is there to be a better player than him slotted into the lineup. I'm just saying. I think Devin Shore is a better hockey player than Derek Grant. That's how I feel about it. Just the way it is.
I mean, you could roll. Like, I still think one of Max Jones or Comtois should get sent down and not play in the fourth line. So then what? You're taking out Delorier, you're taking out Grant. You're putting in Comtois, and you're putting in, I guess, Max Jones for now, or Devin Shore. Devin Shore was in tonight, so it's just Comtois who's out. So you just throw Devin Shore in the fourth line and put Comtois on that third line and roll like that, or put Nick Ritchie down on the fourth line and throw Devin Shore up to the top line. I get it. It's definitely an increase, but is it that much of an increase to get upset about? Devin Shore, is he that much of a better player than Derek Grant that it's hurting the Ducks for having Grant out there over Devin Shore?
I'm just saying, if you're going to roll 4 lines, you better put skill as much as you can and leave guys like Delorier off. I understand Grant's not been a liability, but I still think that having 2 guys, named Max Jones and Maxime Comtois, off the roster tonight is just kind of a problem, especially with what we saw with the kid line last game with Steele, Terry, and Comtois. I was very happy with that line. And Troy Terry, again, even in the 6-1 loss tonight, Ed, I really felt that he pushed through and had a great game. I think he really did. He really, really did. People got on him for missing that penalty shot, but I mean, dude, it's gonna happen, and people miss penalty shots. My God, I mean,
he's built his whole hype off scoring on shootouts, right, in the World Juniors. So, but man, he's gotten better, right? He's still not. I don't think he's still at where I thought or hoped that he'd be at this point. But he is looking better. He's getting his chances. But yeah, I mean, none of really any of the young guys have stepped up this year, and all in the offseason that we were really talking about is there's a lot of ifs for the Ducks this year, and the main one is if the young kids can step up and produce points, and none of them really have. Sam Steele, I think, has looked the best out of all of them. I really like what he's been able to do. He's getting some time on the power play.
Over Troy Terry?
I think Sam Steele's looked the best out of all of them. I really like how he's looked since coming into the lineup. I think he looks comfortable. He looks like he belongs there. And if some guys could finish, or if he could finish on a couple of the chances that have been given to him or that he's given to other players, then he'd have a lot more points right now. I can't really say the same for Troy Terry. Maybe you can say the same for a little bit for Maxime Comtois, because the last couple games he's played in, he's had some very good scoring chances, and he set up some players, including Max Steele, who missed a net, missed a one-timer in the last game against Calgary. But Max Jones, I haven't seen enough of him play to really make a judgment call on that. And Troy Terry, I was expecting more. And Dave in the chat agrees with me. The Steels look the best to him too. I think he looks the most comfortable and the most dangerous on the ice out of Comtois and Jones and Terry.
I mean, is it really Boxing Day in our chat or what? Everyone's siding with the Canadians, and I don't get it. I think it's everyone's on your team, Ed. I'm not sure what they're watching. I like Steele, and all joking aside, Steele's looked really good. He really has. I mean, I guess you could take either one of them, and say that they need to prove themselves a little more before you give them more ice time and give them more time playing in the upper echelon of minutes. But I still don't see the fit for Nick Delorier. I don't get it. That I don't like. Let's move on here real quick. What is going on with Gouli? Do we know anything else? Just like what pertains to his injury here? Because it's brutal. It's not been good for the Ducks at all. I mean, he's sorely missed on that blue line. Very much so.
And it's not like he has this presence where he just makes the blue line that much better that they're missing him, but he just kind of brings consistency to the top two pairings that they don't have right now, because right now Lindholm and Manson are pretty much getting thrown out there for every hard shift in every game, and it's clearly hurting Josh Manson's game right now. And even Hampus Lindholm, the mistakes that both of those guys are making right now, there's no secondary option to go to after those guys. So the opposing team's best line goes out there. Dallas Eakins is likely calling on Hampus Lindholm, Josh Manson, and you get a face-off in your own zone, and you get a line change out there, and it's late in the game. Then Lindholm and Manson are out there. You don't have that option of Gouli and Fowler right now, and I think you can see it on the ice in the on-ice product, especially from Josh Manson, but even Hampus Lindholm. The last 3 or 4 games from him haven't been great, and the mistakes and the turnovers that he's making, miscommunication with Getzlaf tonight led to that shorthanded goal by Matthias Ekholm. So I think, in that sense, Gouli being in the lineup is a huge upgrade and a huge benefit for the Ducks, just to take some pressure off Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson and free up some of the time and space that they're going to be able to get on the ice. And then you have that secondary option, that consistent option, because we know Gouli and Fowler together are great and they work well. Having that second option is going to be very good, because right now you have to put either Del Zotto or Holzer as your second unit out there with Cam Fowler, and then Jakob Larsson and I think Corbinian and Holtz have been paired together. They haven't been bad, and that's an okay third option to have. But you don't want one of those 3 guys up there with Cam Fowler. You want Brendan Gouli, the way he and Fowler have kind of got that chemistry going.
No, I agree with you. It just kind of goes to your point of what you were saying, and I think they've even said it on a recent broadcast. They were talking about how the deployment of Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson's really been heavily towards the top end lines on the other teams. And so that gives more of that freewheel offensive talent of Cam Fowler and Brendan Gouli the chance to thrive. And without Gouli in the lineup, it just doesn't do it for us. Cam Fowler can't play the same kind of game. You just can't do it. And you have 2 6 defensemen in the lineup between Holzer and Michael Del Zotto. It's just not good, especially with one of them having to play top 4 minutes. It's been tough. It's been a tough go with Brendan Gouli out of the lineup.
Yeah, and even up front, Chad brought up a point in the chat. Like, the Ducks are just missing a legit goal scorer. Like, Jakob Silfverberg is a very good goal scorer, and Ricardo Rakell in his own right is a good goal scorer and a good setup man. But they've don't have that guy. And really the last guy that was like that for the Ducks was Corey Perry when he was in his prime, when he was a 30, 40, 50 goal threat. The Ducks haven't had that, and they've lost that, and they really haven't had that for about 4 or 5 years now, 3 or 4 years even. So that's what they're missing. And, Phil brings up Taylor Hall because we talked about that in our last post-game show, but those are the types of players I think they're really missing out there right now, because they're relying a lot on the kids to put up points, and for the most part, it's not happening. And it'll take some time. They've got some good young prospects coming along the way. Plus the guys we've already mentioned. A couple more years of development, and maybe they can score with depth on their team. We've seen teams do that in the past that have multiple 20-goal scorers and can win hockey games that way. But
sure.
They really don't have that legit goal-scoring threat that, if Philip Forsberg was in the game for the Predators, you'd be talking about a player like that, or Victor Arvidsson, the way he's playing and the way he's been putting up goals the last couple of seasons. The Ducks just don't really have that guy right now, that consistent go-to guy that, times are tough, you can rely on a important goal from him.
Yeah, so let's talk about the kids real quick. Troy Terry, 1 point. Sam Steele, 2 points. Maxime Comtois, 1 point. Max Jones, 1 point. And I think we're 10 games in. None of them have played all 10 games.
No.
So we got to mix and match here. I mean, Jones is 7.
Troy Terry has to be the closest, right? He's the only one that hasn't been scratched or hurt.
Troy Terry has played 9 games this season with 1 goal. That's before tonight. So he's played all 10, actually.
He's played all 10. He's the only one who's played all 10.
Yeah. Well, it favors on his side with him playing right wing. That's just the way it goes right now.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly. He's got a guaranteed space at this point, and I don't think the coaching staff and I guess even Bob Murray wants to move Maxime Comtois or Max Jones over to the right side. They've done it in the past, and Max Jones has played all over the ice in junior with the Knights, but I think their main positions, and as we've seen, are on left wing, and unfortunately right now bringing in a guy like Nick Deslauriers has caused the Ducks some issues in getting those guys in the lineup. And either way, I wouldn't want to see Max Jones on the fourth line. I don't want to see that. I'd rather see him get top-line minutes in San Diego, and I think Dave mentioned that in our chat earlier. I don't want to see Max Jones playing 11, 12 minutes a night with Derek Grant and Carter Rowney. I'd rather him be playing in San Diego with Sam Carrick or Antoine Morand and getting some top-line minutes down there.
And they've had a rough start to the season, too. The goals haven't been amazing. Let's move on to the game a bit here. I don't know how you want to break this down. There's a lot of Predators goals, and I don't think we need to fill a podcast with breaking down every goal by the Nashville Predators, because I think that our viewership and listenership would drop right off the cliff to start the show.
I think the first thing we got to talk about was that penalty on Jakob Silfverberg that led to the 5-on-4.
Oh, yeah. That's a tough one. Man. I mean, I guess you can call it, but it's soft. It's soft. That's a real soft call there by the refs.
I'm gonna see if I can throw it up on the screen for everybody, and if you didn't see it, because we posted it up to Twitter earlier. But man, like this apparently the one on Larson was soft, and I didn't go back and look at that one either. But man, like that's one where the ref is right there and he doesn't see it. And I don't know how you call it. Like, I get there is contact there. Like, you're putting Silverberg's putting himself in a bad position for a penalty to get called. But the problem is, like, that is just not a great call. And I got it on the screen here for everybody who's in our Twitch chat who can see it. But he makes a kind of a small cross check, not even on the elbow, I guess, of Roman Josi. And Josi just swings at the puck and kind of just trips and slides over. And at that point, I feel like the ref is right in good position to see it. I don't know how he doesn't see that Josi falls over, and that leads to the Ducks' first goal. I mean, he gives the Preds a 5-on-3. We've seen this in the past, and it's unfortunate to see calls still happen like that. Obviously, it didn't lose the Ducks the game at this point, but I think the refs have to be a little bit more vigilant especially when a call is going to give the opposing team a 5-on-3. And it's a forecheck. It's a forecheck on the penalty kill too. Do you really think Silfverberg's taking a penalty on the forecheck and a penalty?
No, I mean you just can't put yourself in that position. But honestly, man, look, you can't call this. I feel like he doesn't even move from Silfverberg's cross check. He doesn't. I mean, you watch Josi go to the corner, he literally loses an edge. It's just the way it is. Unfortunate call. You got to play past those though. You just have to play past that stuff. As easy as it is to blame a penalty. And to call the refs out for being homers for the Preds or the Perds, as they've been called a lot. You got to get past that. And the Ducks, I mean, dude, they had their chances in this game. I mean, Terry with the penalty shot, Kasha with a breakaway. Getzlaf did get on the board later in the game, but there were chances. I mean, Nick Ritchie with a chance too. I mean, let's not detract from the fact that the Ducks played well 5-on-5, and Pekka Rinne really was just, I mean, honestly, just a wall. He was a beast
Yeah.
tonight. A
Yeah,
beast.
he didn't face as many high danger chances Cam Talbot did in the Calgary game. I think if you're looking at goaltending performances over the last 2 games, I think the Ducks really got stoned by Cam Talbot, and that was unfortunate in that one.
Yeah, that was tough.
Rinne had to make some good saves in this one for sure, and it really took a perfect shot from Ryan Getzlaf to beat him. But the Ducks weren't generating enough high-quality chances in this game. And the Preds pretty much took advantage of almost every high-danger chance that they got and put them in the back of the net. And unfortunately, it's kind of been a trend a bit from the Ducks. They've played well, especially, you look at the Boston game they lost and the Calgary game they lost. They played well in those games, and they still lost. You can kind of say the same for this one, but it's becoming a trend that they really aren't generating a ton of high-scoring chances in games, and that's something we kind of expected, right? Like we already mentioned earlier in the show, they don't really have that legit goal-scoring threat, and so far the only hot line has been Henrique, Raquel, and Silfverberg, and if that cools off, they weren't bad tonight, but they weren't great. That's going to be a problem for the Ducks, and goal scoring we knew was going to be a problem. And if it's going to improve, we're going to have to see some scoring depth come from the young guys and from the top line with Getzlaf and Kasha eventually, because man, things are going to have to get turned around if the Ducks are going to start putting the puck in the back of the net on a regular basis.
I mean, honestly, Richie and Kasha were pretty much the best players on the ice for the Ducks in an offensive category. Yeah, I got to say both those guys played great. They really did. And Richie definitely benefited with being able to play with talented players, right, for sure.
He played with Getzlaf and Kasha. So.
And we've always said that about him, right? We always say it about him. He can produce if he's put with the right guys, but he's better suited for a bottom 6 role. But the Ducks just couldn't break through tonight, man. It was tough. Taking 6 penalties doesn't help. I don't care what you say about where you're playing or about the referees and how it's called. The Ducks got a makeup call right away on a totally bogus slashing call on Colton Sissons. And then there was an errant pass up the boards at the end of the power play that sprung Sissons down the wall. And I think it was it Michael Del Zotto that was back, kind of didn't really force a play. And Gibby was off his ankle. Just a matter of circumstance there. Everything that could have gone wrong on that play went wrong. And Gibby got beat. And all of a sudden now it's 2-0 after that. The Ducks had their chances tonight. They're just not able to create enough space and enough offense to convert on them.
That's probably the first goal I'd have to say I think maybe is on John Gibson a little bit. Like you said, he's off his angle on that one. And Del Zotto doesn't play it perfectly. But Sissons is at a point in the ice where he probably shouldn't beat John Gibson far post top corner. Like, it just shouldn't happen. And it is a perfect shot. But I think that's a little bit of a play where John Gibson, I don't think he expects a player like Colton Sissons to be able to place a shot like that top corner. To be perfectly honest, I didn't expect a player like Colton Sissons to be able to put a shot up in the top corner. But I think on Del Zotto, he's got to play that a little bit harder and maybe we'll get back and get a stick in the lane or something to deflect the shot away from Sissons. I think John Gibson has to give the guy a little bit more credit or just read the play a little bit better on that one. And I know it's tough with the player coming out of the box and he's a new guy on the ice, but I don't want to fault Gibson too much because of how great he's been this year, but I think that's one he'd probably want to have back if he looks at it. We talked about last game, the 2 goals that got scored against him in Calgary. There's nothing he could do about those ones. 2-on-1.
No, and nothing he could do on the Grimaldi goals, a tip inside the slot from a Bonino dump in, and I don't know what you're going to say about what happened with Ekholm either. Just what are you going to do? It's a breakaway. It's shorthanded. Gibby didn't get the best of opportunities by his defense, right? They kind of let him down, and that's what we've seen. And the Predators were opportunistic again.
Yeah, it's just one of those games, and I don't think by any means the Ducks deserve to lose 6-1, but that's the final scoreline. That's what we're looking at this point. And I think that's why some people are reading into this too much and kind of blowing things up and starting fires on Twitter and on social media because it's a 6-1 loss to the Nashville Predators, who are a pretty good team in this league right now. And it was a big matchup for the Ducks and probably one of the toughest matchups they've had so far to start the season. And it's one of those games where you kind of you kind of set in stone where you stand against some of the best teams, and they've got some tough matchups coming up against Dallas and Colorado as well, which are going to be
against Corey Perry. You mean?
Yeah, but they're both very good teams, Central Division opponents as well, and they're on the road, so they're going to be tough games. The Ducks are going to have to bounce back in it. But realistically, you look at this game, and the scoreline probably should have been 3-2, 3-1 Nashville. The Ducks, I don't think, deserve to win this game, but the scoreline should have been a little bit closer. And with 6-1, I think that just makes people panic a little bit.
Well, there's no need to panic. We're at game 10. Ducks Twitter was definitely in panic mode. But let's talk about Josh Manson, Ed. I really, I mean, are we at the point where we need to be really concerned about his play? His underlying numbers aren't atrocious. He's not. I don't know what you could say. He's not just horrendous, but his mistakes are just egregious. They really are. The mistakes he makes are just, they're going to the back of the net. I mean, he doesn't make a ton of them, but every single one, it feels like either he's not getting bailed out or he's just making those mistakes you just can't do. Like the goal tonight by Arvidsson, his second one, where Manson just kind of tried to, the broadcaster tried to one-touch it to the front of the net. And I'm like, I mean, really, why? Why are you doing that? Makes no sense to me. I'm not really quite sure what's going on with him.
Yeah, it's a question something we've always brought up in the past about Josh Manson is, are his underlying numbers propped up by Hampus Lindholm? Maybe slightly. There's probably some more investigative work to be done there to really determine how much Hampus Lindholm improves Josh Manson's numbers in his game.
Let's tell everyone here who doesn't know that Ed writes for the Hockey Writers, and that should be his next article. Is Josh Manson really that good or that bad based on Hampus?
Honestly,
let's get him on it.
For one reason, I'm afraid to find out the answer because I think it's probably somewhat true, and I don't want to rip on the guy because I like Josh Manson. It's probably one I'll dive into eventually, but I think you kind of gotta dig into it more than just looking at the Corsi with or without or shot attempts or scoring chances for without Hampus Lindholm. There's a lot of the eye test too, and you'd have to go back to last season and look at when he was playing with Cam Fowler, but even that stuff.
That's a tough topic to conquer.
Yeah, because of how bad they were last season and just how bad the team played in general. I mean, I did a whole article, pretty much the same thing, almost looking at how Cam Fowler just has not been good or was not good last year. And I went really, really in depth on just what wasn't going right for him and how things he did well in the past just weren't working out. And it'd almost have to be that type of undertaking because I feel like Josh Manson, and I already mentioned this earlier in the show, him and Hampus Lindholm are just suffering a bit for not having that secondary option for the Ducks to go to on the blue line, and they're really taking the lion's share of tough matchups for the team right now. So I think I'll table that discussion on Josh Manson until Brendan Gooley comes back, and we can really see if things get better for him. But there's definitely been some clear mistakes, and the same goes for Hampus Lindholm that at sometimes have led to goals too, right? So it's something that's maybe been going on for a while for Josh Manson. I think after that one season where he really broke out, I think people are maybe expecting a little bit more of that, and I maybe that's just out of reach for what Josh Manson's going to be consistently. But yeah, I think as a guy who's supposed to be a shutdown defenseman, who's supposed to be reliable in his own end, that's one thing that is pretty worrying, that the turnovers are becoming consistent. That's something you need to work on, especially when the Ducks are pretty thin on the right side. Like right now, Josh Manson's really their only guy on that right side before Cabrini and Holzer. So he's got to step things up because they don't really have any depth behind him.
And see, this is where you look at the underlying analytics numbers. You look at it right now tonight. He was 56% with Corsi. He was shots for 9-7 in favor of him. But he was out there for 1 goal for, 2 goals against. All right, and one of them was a direct result of his play. It's just, and that's what's the alarming part. You look at some of the underlying numbers, are he's not so bad. And then you look at you go a little deeper and look at the eye test. Something's just off with his game, just from an eye test view. That's just how I feel about it. I mean, we're 10 games into everybody. No need to sound the alarm bells. I mean, and at the end of the day, what did we really expect from this team going into the season? Was everyone really cup contender? Right? I know we were all all of a sudden high on them.
It was bubble team. It was high to say, it was high in them to say they were going to be a bubble team and have a chance of making the playoffs. If you had told me at the beginning of the year, 9 games in, or 10 games in, they were going to be 6-4-0, I would take it. I would definitely take it. And, it just sucks, the way they lost tonight, and obviously losing a disappointing game against the Flames, and they were 6-2-0 2 games ago. But that's just the way it goes. And, maybe they go into Dallas and Colorado and play some really good hockey. They have been playing really good hockey. This is really the first downside of that, where, they didn't play that bad, but the scoreline looks a lot worse than it is. This is really the first bad game for the Ducks. in 10 games.
Yeah.
And I'll take that because last year they started very well when you look at their record, but they were getting lucky. And we knew they were getting lucky. We could all see it. We all knew it was going to eventually downturn. And you don't have that feeling this year. It almost feels like they're getting unlucky in some of these games in the fact that they just can't finish some of their chances and they're getting beat by a hot goalie in the case of Cam Talbot and then just getting beat by David Pastrnak against the Boston Bruins. It feels different. So, again, like I said, if I knew they were going to be 6-4-0, 10 games in, I would definitely take it.
Yeah, I mean, so Manson leads the team. I think he's tied. I just had it up. Damn it. I just had it up here a second. No, he's tied with Nick Ritchie and Adam Henrique, I think, with minor penalties. They each have 4, and then he's got a 5-minute major. So he's not doing himself favors there. I don't really have to worry about the fight he fought, and it's just what happened. And that was in a game I believe they won. Did they win that game where he fought? Yeah.
Against Carolina, yeah, they won.
Yeah, and they won that game. Yeah, I was there. So yeah, it's tough to talk about this when you've got guys, when you have half of your lineup guys who are questionable to be where they are. When you're talking about Corbinian Holzer, you're talking about Jacob Larson, and you're also talking about Michael Del Zotto. That's half of your top 6 that you rely upon. So, I mean, yeah, missing Brendan Gooley's been a big deal, and maybe that has a lot of effect on Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson. But let's talk about the play of Ondrej Kase. I know that he was one of your guys you've been looking forward to this season about maybe having a breakout year. I mean, you're not the only one. There's been a lot of pundits, a lot of writers, a lot of analysts who said that he's the guy to watch for this season. He was, one of the top guys creating offense all of last year. Are you concerned at all with his lack of finishing ability so far in the first 10 games of the year?
Not so much, because he's been kind of put himself in a different role. He's been more of a creator, and I don't want to say more of a play driver because he's always been a play driver, but he really hasn't been put in that position to finish. I really haven't seen him, other than a couple breakaways that he has, put in a position to shoot the puck and really get some quality scoring chances. He almost seems to be the guy that's carrying the puck into the zone and setting up his teammates. And I think, maybe that will eventually change, and there'll definitely be some chances he gets, but eventually he's going to score on those breakaways. I think it's been 2 or 3 that he's had so far this year that he's come pretty close on, and the goaltenders have robbed him a couple times. He got robbed tonight. I can't remember if it was Cam Talbot in the last game that robbed him, or the game before that. He got robbed on a breakaway where he went to the backhand, and the goaltender made a pretty good save. I can't remember what game that was, but he's getting chances that way, and he's always going to because of his speed and his hockey IQ. And eventually, I think whether it's with Ryan Getzlaf or he gets put on a different line, he's gonna get these scoring chances at some point when the Ducks figure some things out. So I'm not too worried about him, because if he was playing bad and I didn't see the usual things you see from Ondrej Kase, the play driving, the speed, the fact that he's always engaged on the play, I'd be a little bit more upset. It's slightly worrying he's not shooting the puck as more, but he's also not getting those chances. So I think eventually those chances are going to come.
So where do you want to move on from here? Are you at the point right now where we joked about it halfway about Taylor Hall coming to Anaheim last game and how it just didn't make sense? But are you big on any sort of forward movement on this team? Let's just play a game of what if and have fun for a second. After a blowout loss, do you really think that it's necessary, or are you really still content on a rebuild? And if you're not, or retool, sorry, I don't want to piss anyone off. Or if you're not content on that, who would you think is a real possibility for a pickup here?
Before we get into that, I want to just shout out. A couple people had questions surrounding that, so I want to shout out.
Oh yeah, let's hop in.
So it's the same thing, but I just want to shout out their question before we get past it. Phil asked if we'll ever get the top line scoring left wing forward that we've been talking about for like the last decade, and Chad asked if he knows it's a ways away, but do you think we will make some moves at the deadline? So those are pretty much on the same, I guess, target line.
The last decade. Don't besmirch the good name of Bobby Ryan, sir.
Yeah, I guess he got forced to play left wing, didn't he? But when it comes to maybe the Ducks, if there's anybody out there they could go get, it's so tough at the beginning of this year to look at who might be available, because you can go and look at some of the teams who aren't playing that well right now and say maybe they'll have some players available. Maybe Jason Zucker's name comes back up because Minnesota isn't playing that well, and I think he would still be a pretty good option. But who knows where Minnesota is 30 games from now. I still think they're going to be near the bottom, but there's a chance they could turn things around and move up and want to keep Zucker. And with the GM no longer there, the issues that he had with Jason Zucker aren't there anymore either. So that might not be something the Ducks could go after. I doubt Dallas is in the mood to trade anybody, so I don't think you really go that direction. And Chicago's wingers are pretty much a bunch of younger players, so you really can't go there. And if you go east, maybe Ottawa wants to move some guys, but their team's primarily young. I still think they probably move Vladislav Nemestikov, who they just picked up, and he's got 4 points in 3 games. But if he's still doing that, the trade value on a guy like that is going to be pretty high for what he might potentially provide you in the future, and I don't think you go for that. So it's tough. It's tough to say right now. I think, 20, 30 games in, you'll be able to look at which teams are likely going to finish near the bottom and are likely going to be sellers at the deadline, and you can go get it. Whether the Ducks do that or not, it also kind of depends where they are too, right? Like if they go 6-4-0 over the next 10 sets a game, and let's say that puts them at 18-12-0, it's a decent record to have at the 30-game mark. It's not bad.
Yeah.
You're potentially on pace for a playoff spot, and if you just round it out and keep going and say they're 24-16, and obviously things will change and there'll be overtime losses here and there as well. But if you're sitting around the 48 to 55 point mark at the halfway point, it's not a bad place to be at. You're on pace for anywhere between 90 and 100 points, and that's potentially a playoff spot. So the Ducks could be buyers. They routinely aren't, and they generally don't go big at the deadline. And obviously the big name at the deadline this year we already talked about in the last show is going to be Taylor Hall. So
yep.
Unless I think the only way they get that deal done is if they could re-sign him, and even at that point he's 27 now, and it's a little bit worrying to go and get an older guy like that. So I don't think they need to go and get that guy and kind of try and expedite the rebuild or the retool, if you want to call it that, because we're still hoping Trevor Zegras can play at the end of the year. If Boston University doesn't go far in the NCAA tournament at the end of the year, he'll get some games in, and hopefully, if that's the case, then he'll be playing with the Ducks next year. Don't know what he'll be able to produce, right? But
right.
That will be a guy who will join the lineup, and you look at the center depth of the Ducks right now. Getzlaf's still going to be there. Henrique's still going to be there. Sam Steele's still going to be there. Trevor Zegras is a center, but he has routinely played on the wing in the past, and I think when he makes the transition to the NHL, he's probably going to get put at the wing. Do you want to sign Taylor Hall for 7 years and then make even more of a logjam on the left side? Probably not. So I honestly, if they're going to get anything, it would be a rental or a guy with 2 years left on his contract at the deadline who can jump into the top 6. That doesn't cost you so much. So again, like I already mentioned, but maybe a guy like Jason Zucker, if it costs you a second-round pick and a B prospect, then that's not too bad what the price would be to go out and get a guy like Taylor Hall.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening either. And even getting another player like a Zucker, I don't know if it really makes a ton of sense. I just don't think it. I think they really need to eat this season as it is what it is. Why are you going to trade away assets for guys who are older and sign up for too much money? Like, we've been down that road with this team so many times. We had to buy out Corey Perry. We got $6.8 million on injured reserve and a 3-point change at injured reserve, or long-term IR rather, for Kessler and for Patrick Eves. Like, let's just deal with what we've got, see what turns up. I think we're 10 games in. There's not a real big push for me to be like, hey, Bob Murray's got to go out and do something. I mean, we've seen this team compete against, some good teams so far this season. Beating the Carolina Hurricanes is no easy task. I know Peter Mrazek didn't have the greatest game, but they still played well against them. Playing against Buffalo, that team's on fire. I think
Buffalo's playing. Yeah, they're 8-1-1 right now. They won.
They have the most points in the NHL, and they're a good team. A really big test will come against the Colorado Avalanche this Saturday. I really feel like that's a biggie for the Ducks on this road trip.
Mikko Rantanen's not going to be in that game now because
he blew his ankle out, right?
Yeah, so that's I guess just like Forsberg being out tonight, it's a big thing pregame, but it means it's a whole different thing when you go into the game. Considering the fact that Nathan MacKinnon has points in all 9 games to start the season this year, he's still one of the best players in the league. So that's going to be probably the toughest test, maybe other than David Pastrnak, that the Ducks have had this year. When you look at star power and trying to shut down a player, it's not easy to shut down that top line in Boston, and they couldn't do it against Boston. Just like it's not easy to shut down Nathan MacKinnon in Colorado. And they have a lot more depth behind him than they did last year. They've got Nazem Kadri. They've still got Gabriel Landeskog. Tyson Yost just scored a hat trick a couple games ago as well. So It's a different
they're
team
missing
there.
some center depth there, huh? Trying to stop these scoring lines. Missing that center depth kind of hurts. You got to see what Sam Steele turns into.
Yeah, it'll be definitely a different matchup having to go against McKinnon and Kadri this year.
Before we get to any questions in chat or the few questions we had on social media, Luca Sbisa got signed, Ed, if you want to go there now. Luca Spisa's back as an Anaheim Duck. When I first saw that, I was about ready to go, are you kidding me? Is someone else hurt? Are we really going to play this guy? And then it later kind of came out from Eric Stevens that he's expected to go to the AHL. Thank God, because he was not a good player.
Yeah. I mean, he did okay in Vegas, but that was the first year that Vegas was in the league, and everybody did okay on Vegas that year. I think
of course,
he was on pace for like 25, 30 points, which is a big uptick for him. And then he went to the Islanders, only played 9 games. I don't know if he just got scratched after that or what happened, or he got injured or something, because I don't think he even went down to the AHL. He just played 9 games and then just didn't play for the rest of the year. Listen, it is what it is. He's not going to play that much, and when you look at the Ducks' defense depth right now with Holzer and Del Zotto really only being the eventual 6-7 guys that they're going to have, it's not too bad to have an 8 option that's had some NHL experience, because if you go to the goals right now, there really isn't any depth down there. The Ducks could bring up Josh Mahura, but I don't know if you want to throw him into the fire and play him with a guy like Korbinian Holzer or Michael Del Zotto at this point, and maybe just let him develop a bit more in San Diego. Yanni Hakanpää, the little bit of taste we saw from him wasn't great in the games that he played, I think, in preseason before he got sent down. Maybe he gets a look because he's a right-handed shot eventually. But, hey, I mean, Luca Sbisa is almost a meme for Ducks fans at this point because of what he's been able to do. So I think, it's kind of weird seeing him come back, but it's a 1 year, one way. The price hasn't come out yet, but I'm sure it's around like $700,000, $750,000, meaningless against the cap. And he provides some depth, right? He can't be much worse or much better than Del Zotto and Holzer. And if somebody goes down, if one of those guys goes down, or God forbid Gouli stays out longer than we expect, it gives the Ducks some flexibility to withstand some more injuries if they occur.
He's a left-handed shot, by the way.
He is.
Not
yeah.
right.
Yeah. There's not many righties available.
No, and honestly, he got walked a lot in Vancouver. So playing on Vegas, I don't really worry about. I don't care about. He played 9 games with the Islanders. I just whatever. Stay with the goals. That's what it was.
He's a borderline NHL defenseman. He's a 7 or 8, right?
Maybe.
He's a 7 or 8 because especially on the Ducks right now. Because if you look at everybody's healthy, Del Zotto or Holzer is either your 6, right? One of them's your 6, the other one's your 7. Speeds is now your 8 instead of having, Yanni Hakanpää as your 8, or forcing Josh Mahura up to not play any minutes, or bringing up Simon Benoit, or whoever you decide to bring up. Chris Weidman, maybe. Like, I'm surprised that he hasn't got more looks being a right shot defenseman and playing in the NHL.
That is surprising. That's very surprising.
I kind of forgot about him a little bit, but I mean, right now I think he's going to go down and help San Diego because they definitely have some issues on defense. Bringing up, I think they had to bring in like Steven Ruggiero, who is just kind of getting his first taste of the AHL, which is tough for some guys. And when you've got Josh Mahura and Simon Benoit and Yanni Hakanpää leading the way, that's kind of tough. That's kind of tough for them to withstand. So bringing in a guy who's kind of been around and had that experience, and you got to remember, Sbisa, you would think he's 34 at this point, but he's only 29.
Yeah, he's young.
He's just kind of been around the league.
Doesn't mean he's got room to grow. He's just been around.
No,
yeah, he's had 3 teams he's been on.
So right now he helps San Diego, and possibly with injuries or God forbid some good play in San Diego, he might help the Ducks as a 6th or 7th defenseman. I don't hate it. I would have rathered the right shot, but I don't think there's many out there at this point.
So if you guys haven't been to and you're curious to Natural Stat Trick to look at 5-on-5 play, overall play, they have a really cool thing on there that shows defensive pairings, which I think is relatively new this year-ish. I know it wasn't there, I don't think, at the beginning of last year. Am I lost here on that? I just missed it. But Hampus Lindholm, Josh Manson, 142 minutes, 5-on-5 this year and 10 games played. The second most played pairing at 5-on-5 through 8 games, Corbinian, Holzer, and Jacob Larson. There's an issue with defensive depth. So hopefully we see some Brendan Gooley, as we've said. I mean, I've kind of ranted about this off and on through this podcast about defensive depth, but they really miss him. They really need him badly. Do you want to hop into questions, or how do you want to?
We had a couple questions in the chat. Chad asked us thoughts on Aiken so far.
Man,
we're 10 games in. Ducks are 6-4-0. I'll take it first. We're 10 games in. Ducks are 6-4-0, and they look a lot better, right? Like
I let the puppies out. Sorry.
I think they're better than I thought they would be at this point. The record is better than I thought they were. The play is definitely a lot better. The creativity that they have is definitely great. And I honestly expected the goal scoring to be down, so I'm not super surprised that they're not scoring goals that much. So I think all in all, I'm impressed with what Dallas Eakins has been able to do. And I like the confidence that he's given back to the players. They seem to really like him. They seem to enjoy playing hockey again, which is something you couldn't say last year. And it's shown in the on-ice play. They're actually getting up against some of these top teams, like we talked about Carolina and Buffalo, which are hard teams to play against this year. They got up in those games. They got up against Boston, who's one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and played a very good game against them. Again, bringing up the Calgary game, always a tough team to play in the Calgary Flames, so it's always a gritty game. And they came to play in that one, and they just got beat by a hot goaltender. And this has really been the first bad game, per se, for the Ducks, and they didn't even look that bad. So, all in all, I give Dallas Eakins like a 7.5 out of 10 so far. There's some improvements I'd love to see. I don't like seeing Jones and come to us scratch. So I'm not sure how much of that is his decision or the coaching staff or the general managers or whatever. But generally, I've liked most of what I've seen from him so far.
Yeah, and I know that he has control of the entire coaching staff for the that's what he's supposed to run. He's supposed to run the whole boat on that, and that includes the special teams. Penalty kill's been rock solid for the most part. Power play, not so much. Yeah. Not been impressed with the offensive changes on the power play. It's looked good at times. I would give Eakins, like you said, 7.5 to 8 for me. It's a much more enjoyable brand of hockey that we've seen, especially when it's working. Like when you're talking about an offensive rush being led by a defenseman, or a forward leading a rush in with his own winger and center, and then drop it to a defenseman who then passes to another defenseman for a shot. Like, what are we talking about here? We didn't see that last year. I love the creativity, the open flow of the game. There's some defensive stuff to clean up for sure. I think that's where my main concern is. And then secondly, I would look at the scoring situation, but that also falls on the head of Bob Murray. He ices this team, and Dallas Eakins kind of does what he has to do with it.
Yeah, that's more on Bob Murray for me, and he's relying. He said I think it was in training camp, or when the rookies were here. It was rookie camp. He had said, I think this is right after the draft. He was talking about how there's only going to be 3 or 4 spots for the kids this year. We're not going to, we're not going to be playing 7 kids, and then all he does is go out and get Nick Delorier, and that's it. And I kind of liked that aspect in not playing all the kids and not having to rely on everybody to play in the lineup. And if Brendan Gooley was healthy, he'd be one of them. Jacob Larson essentially is another, because he was at that development camp, I believe. And then you have Maxi Comtois, you have Max Jones, you have Troy Terry, you have Sam Steele. 6 guys right there. And so he's already kind of gone back on that a little bit, and I think that's hurt the Ducks, because there was no way all 4 of these guys were going to start the season hot and be contributors to the offense, and it just so happens that really none of them have been, I guess, barring maybe Sam Steele, but even that hasn't been what the Ducks would need for their offense to jump into the top half of the NHL. So it's a little bit more on, I think, Bob Murray on the Ducks offense not doing so well, because I think that the style they have in place is suited to score goals if they just had the personnel to get it done. And they've had some very good chances, and they've whiffed on it, and that's on the players a little bit too. But again, what I'm like rambling here, but on Bob Murray too, is there wasn't much he could do in his defense, right?
No, you're at a situation here where you have to let contracts fall off. You have to give your kids some time to play, to see what you have, to see if they can earn some more value, and then you look at maybe trading somebody off or selling high on somebody and figuring out where you're at. But he had to give the kids time to play to see what he had, for sure. Yeah. We're down to about 10 minutes left here of the show. Ed, where do you want to go, bud?
Alchop40 in our chat said biggest surprise 10 games in and biggest disappointment. So we'll start with the biggest surprise.
Oh,
What's yours?
jeez.
10 games into the season so far.
Biggest surprise. Can they? Man, this is back to my old negative ways. I would say my biggest surprise would be the fall off of the Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson defensive pairing.
With that now, so your biggest surprise is also probably your biggest disappointment.
That's my biggest surprise. It is one and the same. Yeah, it's my biggest surprise from this. I wasn't shocked at the lack
I think
of
they
goal
meant to.
scoring
What
here.
is your biggest surprise? As in, like, what is your biggest positive surprise?
Biggest positive surprise? Man. Dude, that's a tough one. I think what I would say on that is the steady play of, and it's I guess not even that big of a surprise, of Adam Henrique. I think he's really played his spot. He's really proved that he can be that 2-3 line C and be a 35, 45 point guy this year. A lot of this isn't a surprise to me.
Yeah,
it isn't.
I
didn't have these giant aspirations for this year. That's a good question. I'm not faulting the question. I just didn't have these super high hopes. I didn't have a cup contending dream this year.
Yeah, no, that's sort of the same surprise for me, but it's more of a line thing, and I guess a little bit more towards Jakob Silfverberg. I think my biggest surprise in a positive way is how well that line has been. And Chad said Henrik being at 5 goals as well is pretty good to start the season so far. And I think Jakob Silfverberg also, the way he's kind of picked up his game and the fact that Ricardo Rakell and those three have just kind of gelled, when the whole plan that we thought to start the season was initially it was going to be Sam Steele, and then after that it was supposed to be Isaac Lindstrom. And then all of a sudden, Adam Henrique kind of gets thrust into that role, and then it just works. It almost seems like that should have been the plan to go with from the very beginning, and they just seem to work really well together. They've really been the Ducks' only consistent line. As for disappointment, I think the big one for me is that all 4 of the Ducks' young forwards have not particularly excelled. They've not really taken the reins and contributed that much offensively. I still do like what Sam Steele's doing. He's looked poised out there, and I think he's been the best. But Troy Terry, I'm not so happy with his play. I'd like to see him contribute a bit more offensively. Same goes for Maxime Comtois, which maybe I kind of expected a bit more than others, because he is jumping right out from junior, and there was a lot of hype around the 10 games he played last year, but he was getting a lot of luck and contributing on a very few amount of chances that he had last year. So it was kind of just hot play from him to start the year. And then disappointment not so much in Max Jones' play, but just not being able to see him play more.
They need to punch through. That's the problem here. Once one or two of them starts to really punch through offensively, you're going to see them be a mainstay in the lineup. That's just the obvious thing to talk about here when it comes to the kids. But I agree. The secondary scoring has been very much lackluster. And Brett points out Pat positive and then LOL all the way in caps. I could rant on all the negative things you want me to, but that would be a very boring show, Brett. Can't do that.
Yeah, he's surprised that you're being positive.
I know.
But you weren't. You took the positive and went straight to the negative.
But that's just because I didn't have these Mount Everest expectations for these guys. I just didn't. I was content with being competitive this year and being happy with it.
So one of our questions we had on Twitter was from Tom. He said, what is wrong with Josh Manson's decision-making this year? He has way too many catastrophic errors for a player with his experience level. I think more so it's just the workload that they're having to do right now, especially when, like you said, the second most utilized pairing right now is Jakob Larsson and Corbinian Holzer. That kind of says everything about the types of matchup that Manson and Lindholm are getting, and it's tough to do that for every game. Almost every shift you have, you can't really get much going. You got to worry about going against in this game, Ryan Johansson and Mikael Granlund, and obviously Philip Forsberg wasn't playing. And last game it was Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, and before that it was David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. And
and you're not even talking about penalty kill minutes either. This is just all 5-on-5 stuff.
Exactly.
So
normally that gets
tough.
shared with Cam Fowler and Brendan Gooley, and right now it's not. And I think that's why we're seeing a little bit more turnovers than we're used to. And we saw it a bit last year when there was injuries on the blue line to Cam Fowler, where it was Josh Manson, who wasn't playing with Hampus Lindholm, but Josh Manson was getting the line shares of minutes on the top unit, and he was making mistakes there. And the same goes for Hampus Lindholm as well. So I think more so it's just the workload that they're having and being asked to do right now is a little bit too much because of injuries.
Yeah, they're averaging about 18 minutes a night together, and that's including all situations. Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson, but that's what's expected of them. They're supposed to be that. But I guess the problem is like what I said earlier, and we touched on it, is you have 3 guys who aren't top 4 defensemen that are getting rotated in and out of the top 4 slot, and that it just doesn't work when you're trying to roll your team. These injuries for the Ducks to Brendan Gouldy have been very damaging. Dave says in chat, I know I've said this it's for the millionth time, but come to us, Steele and Terry play together, and we'll get going. I would have to say I would love to see that more often than not. They did look great last game, so let's hope that Comtois finds his way back in the lineup.
Yeah, I really wanted. I think that was probably the most exciting thing we took from last game, was we wanted to see those 3 guys together because of how they looked, and then Comtois gets scratched. So hopefully, it's Dallas coming up next. So hopefully we get to see Comtois with Steele and Terry in that game, because I still think there's a lot of potential there based on what we saw. Small sample size for sure. But there's no harm in giving it a chance and seeing what it can do, especially if the cost is just scratching Nick Deslauriers or Nick Ritchie. Like at this point,
what an extraordinary cost.
Again, I like the way Nick Ritchie's played this year, so obviously I'd rather see Nick Deslauriers scratched. But it seems to be that Dallas Eakins kind of likes him on that 4th line, especially playing him in back-to-back games now. So.
Or Daryl Sutter.
If it costs Nick Ritchie for 1 game to see Maxime Comtois play with Steele and Terry and see if there's a real thing there, then that's a small cost to pay to kind of check that line out and see if it has any chemistry there. Because the Ducks could really use the second line now with some chemistry behind Henrique, Raquel, and Silverberg.
No, 100%. Do you have anything else you want to toss in here? Or you want to get to Patreon and some Forever Mighty 3 Stars talk?
We had a few questions actually on Instagram.
Oh, there was more.
Well, yeah,
pulling them out of the rabbit hole.
I'll read them all, but some of them weren't questions. Trinket said 0 to say, so not a tough game. I think echoing the sentiments from a lot of Ducks fans. Clancy said,
great.
"Can we pretend this didn't happen?" I think the Ducks will.
One game, boys. One game.
Well, yeah, and I think that kind of echoes what the Ducks are going to feel like. They're going to put this behind them. It's a game that looks like a bad score line, but they didn't play that.
Burn the damn tape.
John said, "Why scratch Max Jones?" I'm still wondering that a little bit, and might as well send him down at this point. Jimmy said, "Who would you rather?"
Mad Max.
Yeah. Jimmy said, "Who would you rather out there, Holzer or Sbisa?" Purely Holzer, just for the fact
Kevin
he's a right shot
Bieksa?
defenseman.
Can I say Kevin Bieksa? Can I open the 3rd door and say Bieksa, please?
No thanks. Yeah,
I'll go Superman punch all day for that one. Give me the Superman punch over either one of those guys. Just saying.
But I'd rather have Holzer just because he's the right shot. I don't want. If you take Holzer out right now, you've got 5 lefties in there.
Sure.
So
sure.
And then David asked, "Will the Anaheim Ducks bounce back at Dallas?" I think so. Dallas hasn't been
they've
great.
not played well historically in Dallas, as far as I can remember. But I don't think that there's a reason why they can't. They have a lot to go out to try to beat up Corey Perry on Thursday.
Yeah. All right, that's it. That's all we have for the questions.
And so Shane in our chat says, "Eddie, answer me. Are you coming to Anaheim?" I don't think Eddie's coming anytime soon.
Nah,
we're hoping for end of season. End of season, we're talking here.
Yeah, maybe in the new year. If not, then next year.
We're gonna try to get him at the end of this year for sure.
Yeah, this time I come down with the whole family, so it's a little.
Gotta bring the fam in.
More logistics behind getting down there than the last couple times we came down, but.
For sure. Hey, so if you've stuck with us all the way through here at the end of a tough game, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys coming on, and you want more of us, more of this to talk about, and you want us to talk about other topics. You want bonus shows. You want giveaways. You want one of these cool hats. You want some other stuff that we provide our fans.
I want one of those cool hats. I don't have one.
I mean, I know I got to ship you one here, bud. You got to go to our Patreon. We do a Patreon. You can support us. There's 3 different tiers: $1 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month. Lots of different bonuses that go into each one of those, especially the 5 and 10s for sure. But go check it out. Were we able to change our URL?
No, but we will. So right now it's patreon.com/PuckGuysForeverMighty. But we're going to change that, so it's just going to be patreon.com/ForeverMighty. But for now, try puckguys.com or patreon.com/puckeyes if you're looking for it, or you can just check. I think on our Twitter it's linked in our bio as well. So you can go to Google and just search Forever Mighty Patreon and it comes up.
I just put it in our Twitch chat. If you're not a current Patreon member and you would like to take a look at what we have to offer, I put it in our chat for you guys to check out. If you can't, totally fine. It's just if you want more content and the ability to support us, we love and appreciate that. And then, Ed, why don't we tell everybody what we do with Forever Mighty 3 stars and when that new leaderboard's coming out, my friend?
Yeah, so I haven't updated it yet, but you've all been participating, so eventually the update's going to come. But if you haven't seen on Twitter, so if you're listening, you don't check us out on Twitter, make sure you go check out 45 minutes before puck drop on every game this year. We post our prediction challenge, which is called Forever Mighty 3 stars. And you have to make 3 predictions: who's going to score the Ducks' first goal, what the final score is going to be. You don't have to predict who's going to win, just the final score in general. So if you said 6-1 tonight, it doesn't matter if you said the Ducks or the Preds are going to win. You still get a point for that. And then we always have a third random question. Tonight, I think it was, will Gibson face more than 30 shots? I think the answer ended up being no on that one.
Nope.
But every correct answer you get a point, and that sums up at the end of the month. And whoever ends up having the most points ends up winning a free customized jersey from Cool Hockey. You know, the new Adidas one's fully customized, any team, so you don't have to pick the Ducks. Most popular one last year, of course, was the third jerseys. But if you want one of the new orange Adidas ones, I'm rocking the Reebok one. But if you want the new orange thirds this year, you can get that. So make sure you go participate in that. Cool Hockey's generous enough every month to give us a free jersey to give away, and it's a lot of fun to run that contest. It keeps people engaged throughout the month and allows them to kind of, the Ducks do their prediction challenge, but it's nice to have something to win at the end of the month as well.
They don't give away a jersey though. I love the Ducks as much as everyone else here, but I mean, we're where it's at. You got to go to Forever Mighty on Twitter and check us out and follow along. And thank you to all our friends at coolhockey.com for providing us each and every month. We are going to be chatting with them as to our promo code not working right now. FM20 apparently is not giving people a 20% discount. So we're waiting to hear back from Cool Hockey on that. We'll let you guys know as soon as it's back. But we got anything else, my friend? I mean, we have a rancho that got posted today for you in Patreon. A ranch show. Ed and I did that. We have a Pucks and Brews show where we drink along with you guys. We let you guys join in the fun. We try to get everything going here and have a good time with drinks. And so if you're into that and you want to talk more than just hockey, you can tune into Pucks and Brews if you're a Patreon member. If you're not, go ahead and check out our link I threw in chat and sign up. But I think we're ready to go, man. I think we're good. Jason and Eddie on the mics here Thursday and
Jason's
Saturday,
back.
as I will be in Colorado. Jason makes his long-awaited comeback from being on hiatus. We'll see about Sunday. Not sure who's going to be on the pod with that on Sunday. May just be you good people in chat. Who knows where we'll be, but there will be a show Sunday night.
All right. See you guys later.